What is up, guys? We're back with the Triumph just for a little update here. As you can see, I've been busy the last week or so attacking this bodywork, trying to knock it out a little bit so we can get it to paint as soon as we can. So we're just going to go over a couple little things that we've been seeing and maybe some little bodywork tips and just some ideas in case you have a project like this you're trying to do on your own. Let's get started. Alright, so hopefully a lot of this will show up. See right here is this corner we had pulled out. This was literally dented in like it was like a basketball-sized dent, you guys, and it's amazing. Again, shout out to James and Trent over at their PDR business they got going. They did a fantastic job. This, they actually said they glue pulled. Again, I'm really amazed, and it's great because I don't like having a lot of Bondo on cars I'm doing body work on. You can see right there, there's like a little indent right here. This is the one spot we're going to have to add a little to, but instead of having to fill this whole spot and build it up, which would never be good. I mean, I'd cry if someone actually did that. We just have to get this little tiny corner. See if I can get it so you can see it. Little bit of a dent. Nothing terrible. Basically, we're not doing a full bare metal strip on this car. We are just going, you can kind of see we left kind of a base there, but it's all, there's no shiny paint left at all anywhere on the car. It's all been stripped off. No shine on it anymore. And then in the spots that we did need to go to bare metal, we did. So like right around here on these latches, you remember we talked, and there was kind of that little marks around these. We got all that nice and smooth, and we took some of this stuff off here. This door, again, PDR, had a huge crease in it right here. There's a little bit of wave right there, but other than that, that door turned out awesome as well. You can see there was still a lot of green left under this paint that I got to get off still because, again, I'm not a professional body guy, so I don't know all the correct terminology, but I know there was an issue with the two paints, the chemicals of the old paint and the chemicals of what's in there now, what we used for the Triumph Blue, and they didn't go together, so we had to get as much of that green paint off as possible, which is where the grind marks came in, is when they stripped the car. They were a little too aggressive with it, and that's where we got those marks, and we're in the mess that we are now. But it's coming along pretty nice. You can see back here on the trunk, there's kind of a spot that's primed. I ended up cutting around the door, I ended up cutting around this hole for the trunk a little bit because it was pretty bad, pretty crusted up. So I just did a test spot of some primer so that I could see if it was going to show through. That's a tip with bodywork that I've found in the couple projects that I've done, is that if you prime a spot, anything that's wrong with your body work, you're going to see as soon as the primer is laid, which is kind of why I'm amazed that this car was painted the way it was, because all of that should have shown up. But so I just like to do like a little test spot. It'll show your highs and lows and where you need to do more work for sure, because you're going to see all that in the primer, and then in turn you're going to see it in your paint. One other thing that I'd like to mention is that anytime you're doing a paint job like this, you want to take as much of the stuff off as you can. Easy stuff like the door handles, those latches. You can see, remember I showed you where those little buttons were right here for the soft top and stuff. All these I drilled out. I'm just going to buy new rivets and new buttons for those. All that sort of stuff. The tail lights back here, you can see where the tail lights have been taken out. Anything you can take out instead of just mask around is going to give you a better paint job. See all those edges where it's still green, like right in here? All that's going to do is give your paint a chance to chip around where you've taped it off. So you really want to try to avoid that as much as possible. A lot of these hard to get spots, like in here by the cowl and stuff like that, and up here, I ended up using a Scotch-Brite pad. And you want to be careful. That's about as daring as I like to get, because if you were to just use straight up sandpaper and just with your fingers, you're actually going to see indents where your fingers were rubbing. So it's always recommended that you use a block, like a foam block. Obviously some of these spots you're not going to see fingerprints in there, but you want to do as much of that as possible just to keep the surface even. All right. The other thing I was going to mention with like the chemicals of the paint, see there's another test spot of primer. You want to make sure that your primer is going to be compatible with the paint you are using. All right. So I actually have to go to the guy that's going to repaint this for me and pick up some spray cans of special primer, high build primer that's compatible with this blue paint, this sapphire blue, because if it's not, and you're not going to be able to see it on my camera, but this actually has like little microscopic cracks in it. That's just Rust-Oleum primer I was using to spot check. And I texted him and I said, hey, I just wanted to make sure before I actually did this, like all my spots, that this was going to be compatible with the paint that you're going to be using. He said it wasn't going to be compatible with that paint. So I had to wait, and I had to get a primer that's actually going to work and actually going to stick, because your primer is the surface that you're going to be painting. So if the primer isn't stuck, even if your paint looks good underneath, it's going to end up peeling up off of that paint. or off of that primer. So you want to make sure that all your products across the board, whether it's a sealer, a primer, a clear coat, you want to make sure they're all compatible. There's so many different kinds of paint nowadays that you really got to make sure you have all your ducks in a row with that. Other than the Scotch-Brite pad and a little bit of primer, the one other tool I used, which I almost never condone, we're going to go grab it over here, is this Harbor Freight, what is it, Chicago Electric. You can see that there, Chicago Electric Orbital, and this one goes up and down and around. So I usually hate Harbor Freight's electric tools, but this one here seemed like a pretty good, I needed to get it done, and how many cars do I really sand down? Not that many. If I can get through this one car with this guy right here, if I can get through the one car, guess what? And it breaks, I'll buy a new one, all right, for the price that I would pay for a quality one. I just don't do enough of this kind of work to justify the cost of a really good one. I like to know that stuff is trustworthy before I bought it, because that thing was like $70, even from Harbor Freight. And you could get a warranty. I didn't. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. But my buddy Steven from the F100, which we'll have another update on coming up here, he actually has one of these, and we sanded like his whole truck with it, and it didn't miss a beat. The only beef I have with this thing, if you're going to think about getting one, is the on-off switch here. It's a little touchy. Sometimes it likes to slide out of place. So be careful with that if that is something you're going to look into. All right, but yeah, so those are just a couple of the bases I wanted to hit with the Triumph. Wanted to give you guys a little update of how she's coming. I'm going to work on laying a little bit of glazing putty in the Bondo tonight. I just wanted to give you an update of how the Triumph's coming and give you a couple little pointers in case you're doing something your own. Of course, I said by no means am I an expert on bodywork at all. This is just what I've learned over the years. So the key points we had: don't leave any shine on there, your paint won't stick. Know your chemicals, know what parts you can use together. Don't sand with your fingers with sandpaper, it just never ends up that well. And take as much of the stuff off that you can get off so you can actually paint around and under where those are going to go versus tape it off. The more you can get off of there, the better. This has been a Triumph update. See you guys next time.